dog lovers. I love the title of this series. It is Beyond the Podium. There's the podium. Where am I? Beyond it. Yes. I have a very important job to do before we get into this, and that is to ask my co-presenter, who's going to remain silent for once, to stand up and be noticed. Because, yeah, this is my wife, and I learn new things every day, and I'll learn one at the end of this presentation, I'm sure. Now, why am I doing this? Not because she's my wife, and not because her name is up there, but when you have dog behavior questions, how to fix it, this is the one to come and see. And anytime you see us around the ship, come up and ask a question. We don't mind. If you see us dancing, please wait till the dance is finished and then ask your question. If you have any other questions about science, anything related to do with science, it's me, dogs, my wife. Thank you so much, dear. I always like to begin with something humorous. Here's today's offering. Yeah, you read it. Good. I don't need to read that, but I will put it up and let you know. I am going to be moving very quickly, maybe even skipping a few slides because of the technical difficulties we had. Who are we? My wife's an ex-business analyst. I'm an ex-research scientist. We've got now over 100 years of experience in handling a dog, believe it or not, because of the high throughput that we have in our facility. We are dog behaviorists at this point in our lives. We are cage-free. If we were to rename the business, we'd call it Dogs in the House, because that's what it is. But we are, in fact, Area K9. This is how we live. Every one of those dogs, except for the two that we're holding, if I can find it, there it is. I'll go back. I do want to show you these two. Those two there are our two dogs, Cain and Abel. Unfortunately, they have passed, but everybody you see in that picture is a paying guest. All right, where did dogs come from? They evolved from this common ancestor about 40 million years ago. That was a very successful species. It lasted about 11.5 million years. We've only been on the planet for a couple of 100,000 years, so that's how successful Hesperocyon was. About over 200 species came from that. I've listed some of them up here. I've shown you a couple of pictures of them, of something you may not be familiar with, of the canids. We've only got 37 left today that evolved from Hesperocyon. All of the others have gone extinct. Now, how did this happen? We used to have a hunter-gatherer society, then we moved to an agricultural society, and at that point, somehow, the common ancestor of our dogs formed a relationship with people, and people started to integrate them into their society, recognizing the value that these animals had. And as they realized that you could do more and more different things with these, they started to breed them for specific traits, and we'll talk about some of the specific traits in a minute when I go forward. This domestication has happened at least twice, once in the Far East and once in Europe, and it's the Far East lineage that most dogs now can trace their ancestry back to. The European lineage is mostly gone. How do we know this? It's from the Siberian silver fox experiment, started in 1959 by Dmitry Belyaev. He's shown down here with some foxes, and they were breeding these specifically for tameness. But as they went through the breeding cycles, and there were many, of course, things started to change. They were only breeding for tameness. They weren't breeding for color, muzzle shape, or ears, but these changed. In fact, there's one there that's a dead ringer for a border collie. They didn't plan that, but this is how we know things change. That's what they sound like. If you want to buy a Siberian silver fox, you can, for about $10,000. According to the FCI, which is the international organization, there's about 360 breeds. The American Kennel Society has less. They're broken down into different categories. I'm sure you're familiar with some of them: herding, working, sight hounds. But when we look at the dog's DNA, we find that there are groupings that have common ancestors. This is a clade. When you've got a common ancestor to a group of species, you've got a clade. And the picture there shows you representatives from all the 23 clades that have been identified. So in fact, maybe we need more categories than the ones that the kennel societies have listed. This shows you the result of the work that's been done so far. There's 161 breeds that have been studied here, and each colour is a clade. That means there's a common ancestor to that grouping of dogs. And despite the clarity of this, you probably can't see it, so let's zoom in. And I chose this, of course, because in this clade, Shetland sheepdogs are there, which is our dogs. But interestingly, related to Shetland sheepdogs is the Irish Wolfhound, which is the biggest breed in existence today. There's still more breeds that need to be studied, so maybe more clades will be discovered when this work is finally finished. This is a grouping at Area Canine, our facility. All of these dogs belong to a clade. That means they all had a common ancestor. And in that picture, you see our two dogs too, Cain and Abel. And you can see they're all pretty similar in this one, despite the fact I said an Irish Wolfhound is part of that clade too. Now, how does a dog know a dog is a dog? Look at that photograph over on the right. They look so different from each other. And of course, if you look at the one in the middle, you've got the Chihuahua and the Great Dane. If one of them is a traveler from outer space coming down and looking at the inhabitants, you're going to think the other one is completely unrelated to himself. But of course, the Chihuahua knows the Great Dane is likely to be a pushover. And we've seen that happen. There's only 7 genetic regions in the dog's DNA that describe all of those physical attributes that you see up there on the screen. We are much more complicated. We have more genetic diversity there. This is a paper that was published in 2017, and it's a very important paper. Now, I know there's almost nobody in this room that can understand the title of that paper, so let me translate it to you. And I will now paraphrase that translation and tell you that dogs have a sequence in their DNA that is the same as people that suffer from Williams syndrome. What does that mean? People that suffer from Williams syndrome think you are their best friend and will treat you accordingly. Dogs then are hardwired to like people. And if they don't like you, what's the problem? Yes, exactly right. We've caused a problem because they just want to love us. And here are some of our clients loving us. Each one of these dogs that comes to us on a repeat basis thinks we are their owner. And when they go home, they think their owner is their owner. They have 2 homes, as you can see here. We just swim in a sea of love when we are home. Now, breeding. It's got a dark side. Over on the left is the King Charles, or Cavalier. And some time ago in the United Kingdom, unfortunately, the brain of some of these dogs was bigger than the skull. What does this mean? It meant the dog was in pain all the time. What was your solution? 2 things. 1, put the dog down, which many people did. Number 2, was an expensive operation. And we have met somebody that went that route, and it solved that issue. Over on the right is the Best in Show in Westminster. It's a German Shepherd. And notice the horizontality of the spine. It's not any wonder that American German Shepherds all suffer from hip dysplasia. Then there's the English Bulldog. Over on the left we have the English Bulldog 100 years ago or so, and over on the right we have the English Bulldog that you're familiar with today. The one on the right suffers from pretty much every known ailment known to a dog. What are we doing about it? We are trying to rebreed them. And this is an example of a rebred English Bulldog. Looks a little bit different, looks healthier, taller, longer snout. Delightful animal. These pictures were taken at our facility. If you thought you understood what a wolf pack was and tried to transfer that to a dog pack's behavior, you couldn't be more wrong. A wolf pack has an alpha male, has an alpha female. This is the breeding pair. A wolf pack is generally a family unit. They won't accept a stranger. Maybe they will under certain circumstances. And yes, some wolf packs have been large. Up to about 37, I believe, is the record that we found so far. A dog pack is not a dominance hierarchy. which is what a wolf pack is. It is a subordinates hierarchy. What does subordinates hierarchy mean? It means that the top dog is top dog depending on the resource that the top dog wants. Yes, top dogs have more confidence than middle ranking dogs or low ranking dogs, but the situation is fluid and they will accept any stranger after an introductory process. You'll see that when I go into the case studies. Males follow this ranking. Females will challenge a top dog if they want something and get away with it. The middle ranking dogs are the ones that are the growly dogs because they're trying to improve their status. And the low ranking dogs know exactly where they are and won't bother anybody at all. So we have a loose association of social animals. And as I said, it depends on who wants what when. So for example, if a top dog wants the ball I just threw, he'll take it. And if he doesn't, he'll just sit there and watch somebody else go take it. But we'll talk about balls in a minute. Now this is size independent. It's age independent mostly. Some of the older dogs get a little bit more special treatment, but not much. But puppies up to the age of 4 months, and exactly 4 months, can get away with murder. And then after that, they get disciplined. This is Tristan. Tristan is a top dog. He's lying in a very vulnerable position. His belly is exposed. If you've seen the way a dog could dig in the ground, you know somebody could jump on him and tear his stomach out in no time at all. I know what you're saying. He's the only dog in the house when you took that, right? No. I just blew up that section of that picture. Everyone else in there knows who Tristan is. He's a top dog. They're not going to disturb him. Interestingly, the one over here is the same breed as Tristan, but way down in the pack hierarchy compared to Tristan. We are not dogs on 2 legs. Don't pretend you're a dog. Don't roll your dog over and pretend to bite it with your hand. Your dog's going to think you're nuts because you're not a dog. They know that. Their species differentiation is very, very good. It's so good, they know that children are not adults and they treat children completely differently from adults. And there are reasons for that, which I would go into if I had more time, but I don't. Now, there is an old outmoded theory of training dogs. It's dominance, and it has rules, such as these. Don't allow the dog to eat before you, or go through a doorway before you, or go on the furniture, or peer into your eyes. Wrong and right, and we'll cover both of those situations as we get to it. Now, this is not to say that dogs don't like rules. They absolutely do like rules, but the rules could vary from room to room, from house to house, to family to family. Just be consistent. Here's some dog rules. A little bit tongue-in-cheek, but we see this on a daily basis when we're home. If I like it, it's mine. If it's in my mouth, it's mine, as shown in the picture up on the top right. If I can take it from you, it's mine. And you see the tug of war in the bottom picture. So who gets the twig in that bottom picture? All I hear is mumble, mumble, mumble. The dominant dog, oh, what a cop-out. The border collie got it. If I saw it first, it's mine. If you're playing with something and you put it down, it automatically becomes mine. My favorite rule is this one. Fortunately, we don't see that too often. Now, anybody that's had a dog knows they've got the 6 basic emotions. They're listed up here on the screen. I don't need to read those to you. But I submit, there is one dog that doesn't have fear. And I'm holding it. The Yorkshire Teacup Terrier. Or should I say, the Yorkshire Teacup Terror. No, these dogs have a different emotion, it seems. It's this. Have you seen the way they launch themselves into big dogs' faces? You know, dogs big enough to have them for one bite of a meal. Doesn't faze them in the least bit. We've actually had to ban 3 Yorkshire Teacup Terrors from our facility. Yes. Now, if you think you're going to go buy a dog and you're going to read the breed specifics and you're going to say, oh, well, that's it, I'm going to get this breed because it's got all of these characteristics, well, you couldn't be more wrong, because only 15% of the breed characteristics are built into the dog, if you like. The rest of it is up to you. That dog, you've got it in your hand, is going to be whatever you want it to be. It may take a little bit more effort than some breeds, you'll find that out in just a minute, but you can mold a dog to be whatever you want it to be. It's up to you. I know that some people think dogs suffer from guilt. You come home, there's something on the floor. We'll call the dog Spot. Spot, what did you do? What's this on the floor, Spot? You bad dog, you bad dog. Look at what you did here. You are a naughty dog. What's Spot doing? He's sitting over here, cowering away. He looks guilty. No. Right. No. You got it right there. What is he? He's scared of what you are doing. Yes. And maybe you did it before, so he knows. Yes. No guilt. Dogs do not feel guilt. And I'll explain that in a minute when we get to memory. Jealousy. Yes, they are. They do experience jealousy, scientifically proven. See it at home. Start patting a dog and they're all around me. Oh, there's a free pat. Let's go get one. Grief. Like people, it varies from dog to dog. Sometimes they're sad, sometimes they don't care, sometimes they get happy. That's a long story. Can't do it now. And of course, up on the screen now, one of the more famous dogs exhibiting grief is Hachiko. My wife and I are standing next to the statue in Japan at Shibuya Station. Inequity, yes, they know if the housemate's getting more than they are. They can count. Wolves too. Now the difference between dogs and wolves is dogs love you and will forgive you. Wolves hold a grudge. So any of you own wolves, watch out. They hold a grudge. Up on the screen you see emotions building into a human child as a function of age. Age is on the bottom scale. Over on the left, where the line came down, is where the dog develops emotions. Over on the right, they do not develop those higher emotions, and you can see guilt is one of them. We used to think a dog year was 7 human years. No, it's not. It varies with size. Smaller dogs live longer. Large dogs, extra large dogs, live less, unfortunately. Let me show you by example. So a dog that's equivalent to about a 92, 93-year-old person, the small dog will live up to about 19 years of age, the medium-sized dog of 17 years of age, the large dog up to about 15 years of age, and the extra large dog like St. Bernards and Great Danes might make 12. And we actually had a Great Dane that did make 12, but most of these large dogs often don't make double digits, unfortunately. They don't live that long. How do they see? Well, very well actually, but they see differently from us. We have 3 color cones in our eyes, so we can see the spectrum that you see on the bottom of the picture on the left. Dogs do not have the red color cone, so their view of the world is slightly muted. They have more rods than we do, so they can see better at dusk and dawn. They can detect movement very well. Here is a picture of a human view and a dog's view, and look at the red cube there in the green grass, and then look at it from what the dog sees, and it looks the same. You throw that red ball in the grass, the dog follows it because it's moving, you can see it, it stops, no longer can the dog see it, goes into a search pattern, now trying to find it by smell. If you want to buy a toy for a dog they can see, blue or yellow. They're all basically short-sighted. So if my dog was here and I was standing at the back there still and there was no air moving in this direction so they couldn't smell me, they couldn't see me. Once I started to move, yes, they detect the movement and they'll go and investigate it. They're all short-sighted. Bear that in mind. They have a special organ in their eyes which allows light to be reflected back into the eye, which gives them an amplification of what they're seeing. So another reason their eyesight's better than us. That's the Tapetum lucidum, and the colour of that varies on their diet, as shown in some of these pictures. Long-muzzled dogs can see quite a way back peripherally, about 270 degrees. Short-muzzled dogs are very much like us, about 180 degrees. So the long-muzzled dogs are harder to sneak up on. Now this is when you should look into your dog's eyes. This is a dog you know, or you own, or you're very familiar with, because when you do that, the oxytocin level in you and the dog rises. This is actually a bonding method that's been recognized of human mothers with their children. So when you go home, grab your dog, have a good look in the eyes, and it'll do you both good, actually. Do it often. And who can resist those eyes in that Labrador over there? Taste. They have less taste buds than we do. They have about 1,700, we have about 9,000. Unless, of course, you're like my wife, who's got more. Yeah, it's true. They've got the same basic tastes as we do, but a little bit better tuned for the food that they eat. But most of their information comes from their nose. That's how they detect what's good. Their nose is complicated. They have several organs actually in their nose. I'll talk about 3 of them if you like. There's the VNO, the vomeral nasal organ, that allows them to interpret pheromones, that gives them information about a social standing and things like that. You'll see a dog filling the VNO when they're sitting into the wind or standing in the wind and the nose is twitching. But then there's the main smell, which is interpreted by the olfactory bulb, which is 40 times larger compared to brain size than our own. So their sense of smell is anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times more sensitive than our own. Their nostrils also are scenting continuously, and they're independent, so they get directional information about where the strength of the smell is. A trained dog, if they recognize a smell and the wind is blowing towards them, 100 meters away they can detect that smell. If the air is still, 2.5 meters away, which is when you're standing in line in the customs hall and that beagle walks past you, anywhere 2, 3, 4 feet next to your bag, they know what's in it just by walking past. That being said, recently we think we found out the answer. I said there were several organs in the nose. There's this one that was discovered in 2020. They weren't sure, first of all, what it was, but now it's been discovered that this senses temperature. It's probably sensitive to infrared radiation. So they're checking up on the health of the dog, that they're sticking their nose up in that last picture, which is, of course, where you have to put the thermometer if you want to find out your dog's temperature. None of this touching the nose and seeing if it's okay. You have to put the thermometer where you don't want to. So they're measuring temperature with the organ in their nose. Hearing, they've got good hearing. It goes up into the ultrasound. I'll show you that in a second. Some dogs can move their ears, depending on the ear shape, so they can sort of use them like radar and figure out where it's coming from. Other dogs, of course, like the Basset, they're only good for hang gliding. This is the auditory range compared to a human, and you can see the dog's auditory range is going up into the ultrasound. It's going to be a strange world for them, hearing stuff in this mechanical world. I don't know what it's like, but anyway, this is why dog whistles are supposed to work. The ones that you blow and you don't hear anything, but they do. And they can also detect sound further away than we can, about 4 times the distance. Their movement, they have 6 gaits of motion. We've got 2. The 6 gaits are listed up here. Walk, of course, is obvious. Amble and pace is a transitory motion going up to trot. You're familiar with trot, it's like a horse. Canter, they have 2 types of canter, one like a horse and one unique to them. And then there's 2 types of gallop, where they're fully or doubly extended. And this is what some of them look like. This is the walk. And you see the paw pattern on the ground at the bottom. So, side to side, a bit like a camel. In amble, hard to spot. I'm forever looking at dogs, trying to figure out if they're ambling or pacing. Pace, it's the same as amble, but a little bit faster and more synchronized. Trot, you're familiar with, of course. Then canter, gallop, where at one point all four paws are off the ground. And that's the summary of them all together. I said, if you want to take temperature of a dog, you've got to put that thermometer where you don't want to do. And these are the figures that you need to know. They are warmer than we are, which is why they feel so good when you give them a cuddle. They're a little hot water bottle. Now their memory, this is important. Short-term memory, depending on the dog, is anywhere from 10 to 70 seconds. What does this mean? Once that time has elapsed, you cannot associate an event to a consequence. Which is why you come home and there's something on the floor, Spot has no idea what you're talking about. You cannot associate an event with a consequence after that has occurred. In training, you've literally got to react instantaneously to be able to get the dog to associate the event with the consequence or the reward. Long-term memory, however, is absolutely fantastic. They will remember something for the rest of their lives once it goes into long-term memory, which is why they have no trouble remembering their owners if they've been away for a day, a week, or a month. Also, if something traumatic happens, it goes straight from short-term memory into long-term memory, and that can be a problem. If your dog is a good sleeper, it is great to let the dog have a sleep after training, because during sleep, the training is being reinforced. So try and schedule a nap with training. Over on the left, we have the top 10 according to Stanley Coren, Professor Coren at University of British Columbia. These are the most intelligent breeds in terms of obedience. And over on the right, we have the bottom 10. Number 1, the Border Collie. We think, personally, my wife and I, that they're a dog plus. They are so smart. It's unreal. The rest of the order depends. Sometimes it varies. But you can see the top 10, and our Shetland sheepdogs there are in that list. Over on the right, we've got the bottom 10, and down at the very bottom is the Afghan Hound. I'll show you the Afghan in just a second. There's a reason I'll show you. What does this mean? Over on the left, they will obey a learned command 95% of the time when you ask. They will learn a new command within 5 repetitions. Over on the right, they will obey a learned command 25% of the time, first time you ask, and they will learn a new command anywhere from 80 to 100 repetitions, or maybe never. And here's Maisie. She's an Afghan. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's a brindle Afghan, very rare. That's the only reason I'm showing you is because it's such a gorgeous photograph, and dumb as a post. What can I say? Again, Coren has linked dogs' intelligence to size. So if you're looking for a smart dog, you want to be aiming at the middle to large size. The very small dogs and the very large dogs, according to Coren, are not as smart as the ones in the middle shown on that plot. How does a dog's brain work? Flow diagram, tongue in cheek. Let me go through one. Object, can you eat it? Yes. Was it good? No. Puke it out. Re-eat it. Done. We see a variation of area K9. I'll go through the same pathway. Object, can you eat it? Yes. Was it good? No. Puke it out. Somebody else eats it. You try and discourage that behavior. Could they speak? No. They can't form words. Their voice box just won't let them do it. We've been studying dogs, the way they think. First thing was getting them into the functional MRI, getting them to stand still with no anesthetic so we could look for what's going on in their brain. Here's an example, the Boston there over on the right, picture, over on my left, yes. The smell sensor is being activated. There is a stranger's sweat on the Q-tip. Over on the other side, in the brain, the reward center has been activated because now what's on the Q-tip is the owner's sweat. What does this mean? Who's got a dog? When you go home, grab your dog, stuff it up your arm. But it's pleasurable. Science proved it. This is a very important finding from functional MRI. Dogs would rather get an emotional response from you, a belly rub, instead of the food treat. This is great news because if you're out with your dog, you've always got you with you. You can always give your dog a great reward, which is you. And the more emotionally charged you give that reward, the more the dog gets it from you. Fantastic news. How about language? Rico over on the left there knew about 200 trained words. Dogs are learning from you all the time, whether you're training them or it's just repetition. They are learning. You want training all the time if you didn't know it. But the record here is Chaser. Chaser knew over 1,000 objects and could retrieve them on command. And these are some of the objects that Chaser knew. Absolutely fantastic. Chaser was so smart, Chaser, she could even learn a new object by inference. You put 5 objects down behind the settee, she knows 4 of them, you call out a name she didn't recognize, she goes around the back, she looks at the 5 objects, she knew 4 of them, there's a new name, there's an object I don't recognize, it must be that one. Smart dog. Button dogs, you may have heard of this. There's a huge study going on right now. What are those buttons? Those buttons have a communication message in them that you've programmed. So this allows the dog to, once it understands the event and the consequence, to communicate with you. The aim of this study is to see how good their communication skills really are. We don't know yet. Dogs and language, the top panel, you can read it, the screen, so fantastic. The only thing the dog understands is the name, because you haven't taught anything. But the dog understands your emotions. Oh yes, they can read you like a book. Brain activity, another fMRI study, and cut to the chase here. Their brains work the same as ours. The left hemisphere interprets the meaning, the right hemisphere interprets the emotion. So make sure whatever you're saying matches the two things, otherwise you'll confuse the dog. How do they speak to each other? I gotta go really fast now because we're getting down a bit on time. Every one of these things that's flashing up on the screen means something to another dog. And you can learn this too, so you can understand what the dog is saying. And I will give you some examples as we go through. So when you're looking at a dog that's communicating to another dog, it's the whole dog that is giving a message, the whole body, shape, sound, got to look at it all. Some things add up, some things subtract from each other, so you've got to try and figure out what they're saying. All right, here's an example, over on the lower right, on the bottom bullet, I'm not reading these bullets. That's active submission, the body's lowered, the head's lowered, we've got a paw lift showing uncertainty. This is active submission. So that's the body shape. This is Patch. Patch is just entered our facility, pular erection all the way down the spine, the hair's up, the tail's high. What Patch is saying to Bentley is, I'm very uncomfortable right now. Don't get too close, leave me alone, let me calm down, otherwise I might get upset. And that could lead to something unpleasant. That lasts for about 10 seconds. Ears, again, I'll only concentrate on the bottom bullet here. Ears flat back on the head, you think the dog is fearful, not necessarily. If it's your dog, it's respect. The whole dog is vibrating with pleasure to see you. The ears are flat back on the head, it's respect. They're not scared of you. Eyes, this is when you do not look into a dog's eyes. You meet a strange dog on the street, and you peer into that dog's eyes, that's a challenge. That could precipitate something that you don't want to participate in. Don't look in a strange dog's eyes. It's a challenge. The mouth, again, I'm just concentrate on the bottom one, where we see the teeth down there, the back of the lip, the more C-shaped it becomes, the more the aggression is rising. And of course, there's going to be some sound associated with that in the form of growling. Yes, they do make sounds. The one that we hear at Area Canine is from a dog over the street. It's doing a repetitive single bark. It's basically saying, is anybody there? I'd like to play. It's a lonely dog. So they do have some meaning. Tail is complicated. Tail is relative to the rest position of that dog. Partly breed dependent. Yes, Huskies have high tails. Italian Greyhounds have low tails. But from dog to dog within a breed, it can vary. And you're looking at the rate of wag, the tail position, and also the direction of wag, as shown here. So a right wag, the dog likes something and wants to approach it. A left wag, they're unsure and may want to back off. So just because the tail's wagging, it doesn't necessarily mean they like what they're seeing. It's also directionally dependent. I won't say anything about this, only to say that do not give dogs human food. It is not good for them because of the additives therein. Case studies. I think we've got time to get through the 3 case studies. First one, who gets the food? 2 Labradors, food on the ground between them. I'll walk you through this, we'll look at the bodies and I'll point out some features. So the one with the back to us is about to sit down as that one on the far side approach. They're looking at each other directly right now, sitting down. Are we claiming the food? Because we sat next to it. Now they're not looking at each other, the eye lines have separated. The one with the back to us is showing some teeth, the ears are back. The other one approaching has head lowered, is looking away, tail high. The one with the back to us is going to do a lip lick in a minute. So watch the muzzle. Eye line's very separate at the moment. I don't know if I missed it. Did I miss it? No, not yet. Eye line's still separate. A shift to the right and a lip lick. Very significant. Small shift and a lip lick. The other one has approached, head is still lower, or tail is high. They are not looking at each other. Now we're both sitting. Snap. Cunning move coming up. Here it comes. There we go. Cunning move because, oh, there's food on the ground. I better try some. And the other one gives up, shifts over to the right and goes away. Case study. Did you all get that right? Yeah. Top dog entering the pack. Bentley, unusual, he's a golden retriever, and is a top dog. Now notice as he enters the pack, his tail is high and he ignores everybody. Continues to ignore them basically all through this. Simon the St. Bernard is a middle ranking dog and is trying to assert himself. Fails. Bentley is a bit more comfortable, he's paying a little bit more attention to them. They come up, they give him a spell. Basically they're saying hi. And this is essentially it. He's already integrated to the pack at this point. There we go. Now we'll look at the opposite. We'll look at an uncertain dog coming in. This is Angel. Angel is a white German Shepherd Husky mix. And the first thing Angel wants to do is not come outside. He doesn't want to be the dogs outside. But nonetheless, she's out. Tries to go back in. You will notice when she comes out, she continually looks at Luda for safety and security. And some of the other dogs will get disciplined, Tristan in particular will get corrected for his behaviour. Luda will redirect his behaviour into a sit, because that's something he knows how to do. Again, look at Angel, she keeps looking at Luda, ears are back, tail is down. There's Luda correcting Tristan, correcting him. Simon coming over. Notice Tristan getting a pat. Simon's jealous. He was in there too. Give me a pat as well. She's had enough. I've met you all. Gone. Displacement behavior. If they're slightly stressed, you'll see them do these behaviors. The one that we see most commonly is shaking off, as shown in the picture. If there's more fear with the stress, you'll see other behaviors as shown on this slide. The one that we see most often is drooling and whining. How do you communicate with them? Mostly through training. There's 2 things you can do directly. You can yawn or you can blink at a dog. They are both calming gestures. Otherwise, you've got to teach English as a second language. And you can understand what they say. You can also get their attention better if you speak excitedly to them. like I've been speaking excitedly to you all morning to get your attention, because I know you're suffering from lack of sleep. Are you ever done? No, you're never done. If you've got a dog, you should always be taking them out, showing them new places, reinforcing training in unusual situations. Always. It benefits you, it benefits your dog. This is the zero dog. Louis is not a zero dog, but he's sitting down. A zero dog will be sitting. The only thing that will be moving is the eyes. If you ever meet a dog like this, go away, because that dog could explode on you and you won't like the outcome. A very important study. This was involving over 3 million people. They were looking at the health effects of people that had dogs to the health effects of people that didn't have dogs. Let's go straight to the results. Single people living at home compared with those that didn't have a dog. People who had a dog had 36% less risk of cardiovascular death, 33% less risk of death, and 11% less risk of heart attack compared to people that didn't have a dog. Similarly, with multi-person households, those with a dog had better health outcomes than those without a dog. The message is clear. Go home, married people I'm speaking to now, go home, argue over the dog, get divorced. The one with the dog lives longer. And this one here, on dogs, they have a different bio than we do. We have a different bio than they do. And we exchange those biomes. For infants, this strengthens their immune system. So it's very healthy to have a dog in the house if you've got young children. It really helps tune them up. Final word. Everything I've said and a whole lot more is in the book that my wife and I wrote. And that's all your fault, because you kept coming up at the end of these lectures and saying, do you have something? Do you have something? Do you have a DVD? So finally we got a book. You can get it off the book site, you can get it off our site, or just go to Amazon. And that brings me to the end. I will say 3 more things. For those of you who came in late, 4 more things. Dog behavior questions, go see her. At 1 o'clock today, I'm doing a talk in conjunction with Future Cruises about Darwin, the Galapagos, and our experiences when we went there. Got some amazing photographs and videos of what we saw. At 2:45, I'm going to do how to